At some point in life, everybody comes face to face with evil. It might be in another person outside you. You might see it in some atrocity committed, like a war or murder or theft. Some kind of evil you're always going to come to terms with. And it might be outside or it might be in yourself. And in this video, what I want to do is give some clarity on this problem and explain it using depth psychology. And I just want to keep this video short and simple and fast, just to give you a little bit of insight without going into any specific examples, which can get different people emotionally heated and make these emotions rise up, which make it difficult to think clearly. So what I want to do is just stay conceptual and stick to the theory of depth psychology here in this video. So this is an example, or this is a diagram of the human mind and human consciousness. And I won't go into all the different parts here, but the key here is to see this diagram as yourself. This is you, your mind. And the reason this problem of evil is going to be relatable to you is because all humans go through this. All human beings go through this problem of finding a way to digest and understand this problem that everyone faces, right? How can there be so much death and suffering in the world? Why are evil things happening, right? Why are people killing each other? And, why are all these things happening all the time, day in, day out? It's not like people just stop doing it. It's always happening. There's, you might consider evil on a, let's just say a spectrum. There might be lying, telling a lie, or cheating, and thievery, and then murder, and then there's just different levels of evil, right? And so this problem is something that has to be explored and examined and faced, confronted, both in the world and in yourself. And so that's what we've got here. This represents the minds of humanity, also the minds of the collective, the minds of every other person in the world. And this here we're going to look at your mind. And so the reason this problem is relatable is because a part of the mind, a part of the human mind, which exists in all people, is we normally describe that as a collective part of the mind. It's a collective, or it's something that's common to all human beings. And this is what we're gonna be facing here, is the problem of evil is something that's collective. It's something that all human beings experience and are confronted with. And what is generally termed or generally perceived as good or evil in your mind is what's going to be perceived as good or evil in the society or the group which you are existing in or living in or you've grown up in. And just as a simple example, when you were young, your parents, you might have told a lie. You're a toddler, you're 2 years old, and you've taken a cookie from the cookie jar and you've stolen something and then you lied about it. Your parents might tell you, hey, they might reprimand you or smack you or give you a timeout for, first of all, for taking something that wasn't yours, and then second of all, for lying about it, right? And there's these two evil things. And so evil becomes something that you're taught at a young age to separate yourself from. And in our mind, this becomes the personal shadow, right? It becomes the qualities that we have that we don't want to look at, don't want to accept, and don't want to be confronted by, and that we turn away from. We don't want to look at, right? We push away. And so what do? We associate to our own personal identity the positive qualities which we are taught are good. And so in this case, it might be honesty and generosity, right? In the case of the toddler, those are the opposites. One case might be greediness, where they want the cookie for themselves, and the other quality might be dishonesty or lying, right? And so those are the two qualities which are pushed away. And then the opposite of those qualities, which we are taught are good, might be to be generous and honest. And what happens is, depending on the society that you're brought up in, depending on the group that you're brought up in, the qualities that develop in your mind are going to be different to the qualities that develop in somebody else's mind. And this is what we call the personal shadow and the persona. The positive qualities that we develop, which we think we are only, for example, if we think we are only ever honest, and we're never dishonest, or we are only clean and we're never dirty, or we are only whatever positive quality and never this other negative quality, then that's a one-sided attitude which is separating you from reality. It's not true, right? The toddler lies, we all lie, I lie, you lie, right? We all have this part of our personality, this part of our consciousness which exists, and pushing it away doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And so this is a small, what's called microcosm, or a small example of a bigger problem. And so when you push away the quality of, for example, lying, and the opposite quality of being honest is attached to your personality. This is something that what happens is when it develops inside your mind, in you, right? We can now look at everybody else in the group that you're in, and we can say, okay, when the same development is in their mind, it becomes a collective development. Okay, so now it's this one problem which we're now seeing in a group of people, and when you go from society to society, the personal shadow is different, or the typical personal shadow, the typical personal development of positive and negative qualities in every society is going to be slightly different. However, we're looking at the problem of evil here, and the problem of evil is one that's collective to all human beings, which means it doesn't matter which society you look at any time, across all time, going back into history and going into the future, all human beings are going to be faced with this collective problem, this bigger problem of evil. And the key here is that because it's a collective problem, what we can immediately understand is it doesn't just exist outside, it exists within us. That's the real difficulty here, is to confront the problem of evil in yourself. You know, we want to have this good opinion of ourselves and this positive qualities, or like we want to have this positive association to our own identity. And that's what happens with the persona, is that, you know, a really good example of this, I did want to stay away from examples because it can get very complex and very morally complex very quick. However, the way to see through the moral complexity is to perceive and look at every situation as a completely individual situation, right? We don't want to, what's called, project onto the situation. For example, if somebody murdered somebody, especially the word murder, if somebody killed somebody else, immediately you think, oh, they're an evil person. They're a terrible person. They should never have done that. You know, whatever. That's an evil thing to do. However, when you look at the specific situation, it may have been the correct thing to do. You know, in different legal systems, we have self-defense laws. Maybe they were defending themselves, or maybe there was some other reason which makes that particular action in that situation, in that individual situation, not evil, right? And so the moral complexity, you know, it becomes very difficult to see through. However, you know, what I want to look at here is the key to seeing through it is to understand the problem of evil in yourself first. Then you can much more clearly see and understand the problem of evil in the world and outside you. And so what I'll give as an example for this is, you know, we have people who go to war, and maybe before they went to war, let's just say, for example, they're a school teacher, or they're a plumber, or they're a tradesman, a carpenter. We don't know much about ourselves in terms of the problem of evil until either we're put into extreme circumstances where we're forced to confront it, or we do the inner shadow work with depth psychology, and we look inwards and we look into our own mind and our own soul and confront the problem that way. So let's just look at the other example, this example of the school teacher or the carpenter who goes to war, and they commit some atrocity. They commit some evil thing. They kill a child, or they murder their fellow man. Right? They see these horrible things. They see the worst side of humanity, and they're now faced with this conflict in themselves. How have I done something? Right? I'm this good person. How have I done something so evil? I think it's the movie Gran Torino, where the old man is, you know, suffering from this massive guilt and shame of killing an innocent person or a child. I think it was in one of the wars. I think it was the Vietnam War, in Gran Torino, the movie. And these problems can just eat away at our soul and really destroy us. And these conflicts can just, you know, they can be huge in the mind. And so it's a very, very difficult concept to wrap your head around. And I don't want to go too deep into it here on YouTube. It can get very messy, and people can misunderstand what we're talking about very easily. So one thing I will leave you with, what I want to kind of do to give some clarity on this problem and maybe help you with it, is when there's a quality that you don't see in yourself at all, it means that it's totally unconscious. However, it does exist. For example, like we talked about lying before, when you don't believe at all that you've ever lied, that you're only ever honest, that you're only ever this one thing, and that, you know, the opposite quality is never a part of your personality. It's not even possible to exist within you. That's when what's going to happen is you're going to experience that quality outside you, and you're never going to see it in yourself. And because you don't see it in yourself, that's why you're going to experience it outside. And that separates you from other people and reality. Because what's going to happen is you're going to come across an individual who you see that quality in. And when let's just say you were able to get past seeing that this other person is this horrible liar and all they do is lie. And you're able to get past that. And you see that, okay, I lie too. And I'm a human being. And there's both positive and negative qualities in me. There's both good and evil in me. Just like there is, good and evil in this other person. When you're able to, what's called, dissolve that projection and see that person for an individual human being, then you can actually get closer to the truth, get closer to reality, and get closer to understanding the problem of evil in yourself and the problem of evil outside in the world. Because once you understand the problem of evil in yourself, you're going to understand that same problem of evil in other people, in the collective. So once you understand what's happening in your mind, how there are situations where you might commit some atrocity, how there are situations where something that you thought was evil is actually good, where, kicking your child out of the house because they're lazy or is actually the best thing for them, or where something that you thought was horrible, like losing all your money and becoming destitute and living in bad circumstances, may actually be the best thing. Or, when telling a lie is actually the right thing for that situation. Or, the opposite, where telling the truth is actually evil. We don't tell children every truth about the world instantly and just destroy their innocence when they're 3 years old. That's just not how, how things are done. It's not a good thing to do, right? And so the problem of evil can get very complex very fast, because what you perceive as only evil may actually have some good to it, or there may be individual situations where it's actually good to do that evil thing, and the opposite happens for good. There may be some situations, some individual situations. Individual means one of one. It's where you are placed in a situation, or somebody else is placed in a situation where, you don't know what the situation was, right? There's individual complexity to it. And so that's where it becomes dangerous to have this worldview of a binary understanding of good and evil. And that's where you make mistakes, especially with how you treat other people. And so the opposite of where there are situations where evil can be a good thing to do, is there are situations where doing a good thing is evil. Where smothering somebody with too much love and too much affection is actually, stunting their development, and they're not able to, build a confidence in themselves or something like that. That you're hurting them with too much love. We know all these things exist. It's just a very messy problem. It can be like walking through fog. You just can't see your way through it. And so the way to see the way through it, and the way to gain clarity on this problem, when you see evil out in the world, when you see these qualities out in the world, is to see them first in yourself. And what's really cool about this topic is that the opposite is also true. When you only see evil in yourself, if you're somebody who has, had a difficult upbringing, or you've had bad situations, right? That happens, and it happens to a lot of people. Okay, it's not the human experience is not some ride in the park. Okay, you're going to be confronted with evil fast, and at different points in life to different degrees, right? Some people are, let's just say, that potentially very sheltered, and other people are thrown straight into the deep end. And so what can happen is that people only see evil in themselves, right? I deserve this. I deserve everything bad to happen to me. I'm such an evil person. And then what happens is that the shadow, what's unknown and what's out there, are the good people. And so it can flip. So I don't want to go too deep into that, but I just want to explain that the problem of evil, you may see yourself as evil and see yourself as this bad person who deserves every bad thing to happen to them. And that's one-sided. It's not the whole situation. You're missing something else completely. And what happens there is you're actually unconscious. Your personal shadow becomes all the positive qualities of nobility and loyalty and honesty and whatever, all the positive qualities that you don't see in yourself become the shadow and become what's unconscious in you. And this can also happen to entire societies where the evil qualities, or let's just say the perceived evil qualities of humanity are, and there are evil qualities. So there are evil qualities and then there's also perceived. And that's why we get into personal shadow. What happens is, let's just say there's an evil quality and there's a good quality. There's positive and negative to both. And so it doesn't mean that because there's positive qualities of evil that it discounts or destroys the negative qualities. So there is true evil, and then there's also good. There's a good side of evil, and then there's true goodness, and then there's also an evil side of goodness. And so when you have only a binary understanding of reality, you're going to miss situations. You're going to 100% make a mistake, run into a problem where your understanding of the world doesn't fit some kind of problem, right? You've hit some kind of situation, some individual situation where that situation doesn't fit into your worldview, and that's when you have this problem, this crisis of understanding. And so if you are somebody who is looking at themselves and seeing negative qualities, seeing evil, you may start to have dreams or fantasies or ideas come up into your mind where the positive qualities, which are unknown to you and perceived as only outside, you're going to start to be fascinated by them and go in that direction. And that's what I want to say, is that, I really want to get that across, is that there's obviously the side of, which is more common, of people who, are confronted with the evil side of their own personality through circumstances that they come across. Or even just introspection, maybe reading, maybe thinking about themselves, or even thinking about the world and coming across the evil outside. However, for the kind of less common experience of somebody who perceives themselves as evil because of something they've done, because of, some quality that they see in themselves, or even just, as a byproduct of where they were born, of the parents that they have, the society that they grew up in, anything like that. Seeing yourself as evil is only one side of the coin, and you may like I said, you might be fascinated by this positive side of your personality, or this other side of your personality, which is interesting and fascinating, and you'll experience that as somebody out there, or people outside. And this is just a very difficult problem to see through, but hopefully this video gives a little bit of clarity on it, and you understand a little bit more about the problem of evil in humanity. And it's difficult to stop here, but I think it's, for this video, and just to keep it simple and to give you an introduction to the ideas, this is a good introduction. If you like this video, I'm posting new videos every single day. And if you want to take the next step and go a little bit further into your individuation journey, so understanding your mind, the psyche, the human psyche, I've created a mind mastery blueprint, which just gives you an overview of the kind of processes and the basic understanding of how the human psyche works and how it affects all of your decisions and your understanding of yourself, and the kind of pathway to finding your unique personality and uncovering all the qualities of your unique psyche and who you are, and also understanding the deeper parts and the deeper forces which affect you, the entire world, and specifically your life and your decisions, because every decision you make will change your life. And so, if you're not living the kind of life that you want, then you have to look at your decisions and look behind the decisions at your own personality, your own psyche, your own soul. And so the Mind Mastery Blueprint just is kind of the next step, introduction to that. It's completely free. The link's in the description, and I'll probably put into the pinned comments as well. So anyway, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.